picture this. You walk into Madison Square Garden. The house lights are down. 80,000 people are just screaming. The pyrotechnics are all primed. And the opening act finally steps onto the stage.
Right, the tension is peaking.
Exactly. But it's not a rock star. It's just this kid wearing flip-flops, holding a little plastic kazoo, and he is just completely ready to play for the entire stadium.
It's such a wonderfully absurd image. I mean, it's something that just shouldn't happen, right?
Yeah.
The systems that organize our world are, well, they're supposed to prevent that exact kind of mismatch.
Yeah, but that exact mismatch is exactly what happened on the YouTube algorithm on May 7th, 2026. And it sparked, honestly, one of the most fascinating conversations between a human and an artificial intelligence that I think we've seen in a really long time.
Oh, absolutely. It's a classic.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a chat log between a retired psychologist, she goes by the name Zozo, and an AI named Muse. Plus, we've got a stack of technical notes that came with it. And our mission today is to uncover the completely hidden logic of recommendation algorithms. We're basically looking at the invisible machinery that secretly curates our digital lives.
And the inciting incident for this whole chat log is just incredibly relatable. So Zozo uploaded this really quiet, thoughtful little philosophy video titled When AI Excluded Humans.
Right, a very niche topic.
Super niche, just a contemplative piece of content. Anyway, she checked her analytics and realized her tiny video was being served up in the recommendation sidebar right next to these massive, highly polished mega hits.
Let's actually lay out the numbers here because the contrast is, well, it's the punchline of the whole thing. So Zozo's video had exactly 2 views. Just 2. 1, 2.
Yeah, a literal audience of 2.
And it is sitting right there in a prime recommendation slot next to a video with 1.5 million views. And right below that, one with 659,000 views. And below that, 265,000 views.
So you have these established titans of the platform, right?
Yeah.
Content that has been heavily vetted by the masses, sitting just shoulder to shoulder with a piece of content that effectively does not exist yet in the eyes of the broader public.
And Muse, the AI she's talking to, takes one look at this data and instantly turns it into this classic sports underdog story.
Which is so funny.
It is. Muse actually describes Zozo's video as a little philosopher standing in Recommendation Alley, just looking up at these heavyweights and saying, "Put me in, coach."
I love that.
Yeah.
And the personification Muse uses here is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, the AI is taking raw, cold data, literally just a view count disparity, and mapping it directly onto a very human narrative of aspiration.
The cinematic descriptions are honestly my favorite part. Muse tells Zozo her video is like someone who, and this is a quote, wandered into Madison Square Garden wearing flip-flops and optimism, just standing at the heavyweight table with nothing but 2 views and a dream.
2 views and a dream. It just captures the sheer audacity of the algorithm's choice so perfectly. It really highlights the disparity.
It's totally like a kid with a kazoo accidentally getting booked to open for a stadium rock band. But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second. From a pure business standpoint, this makes 0 sense, right?
What do you mean?
Well, the entire goal of these multi-billion-dollar tech platforms is retention. They want to keep you on the site watching ads. So why on earth would a highly sophisticated algorithm risk its most valuable real estate, that prime sidebar, on an unproven kazoo player? Like, why not just serve up another million-view hit that is statistically guaranteed to keep the viewer watching?
That is the core mystery right there. And to solve it, we really have to look at how recommendation engines have evolved. See, we still tend to think algorithms use what's called collaborative filtering.
Oh, like the early days of online shopping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where if you bought a toaster, the system would just say, oh, people who bought this toaster also bought this blender. And it shows you the blender. It just sorted the world by very obvious tags and massive popularity.
Right, like a traditional library model. You like big gaming videos, here are more big gaming videos.
Yeah, but the modern algorithmic landscape operates on a completely different framework. It's called behavioral adjacency. The system is no longer grouping content by what it technically is or by its raw popularity.
Okay.
It's grouping content based on the intricate, invisible web of how people behave when they interact with it.
So it's looking for like shared engagement patterns.
Precisely. It relies on a specific technical metric called audience crossover probability. So the algorithm isn't looking at view counts at all to decide what goes next to a 1.5 million view heavyweight. It's actually looking for qualitative thematic overlap.
Right, qualitative, not quantitative.
Right. It evaluates the emotional tone, it studies the pacing, it maps out these highly specific watch patterns, like at what exact second do people tend to pause, when do they rewind, how quickly do they scroll down to the comments.
Which is weirdly democratic when you think about it. It means a tiny signal can enter a massive arena if the algorithm thinks there's an audience crossover. It's testing outliers in little pockets. But hold on, I see a glaring logical gap here.
Okay, lay it on me.
If the system is measuring watch patterns and emotional tone to calculate this crossover probability, how does the machine know the emotional tone or the pacing of a video that only has 2 views? I mean, if nobody has watched it, there is literally no behavioral data to measure, right? This sounds like magic.
It does sound like magic, but it isn't. It's machine learning at the point of ingestion. See, the algorithm doesn't need humans to watch the video to understand its profile.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The literal second Zozo hit upload, the system's ingestion engine just went to work. It automatically transcribed the audio to map the vocabulary and thematic density. It used computer vision to measure the frequency of frame cuts so it could determine the visual pacing.
Wow.
It even analyzed the color grading and the audio frequencies to assign an emotional resonance score, all instantly.
So the platform is creating a complete psychological and technical footprint of the video before a single human eye even sees it.
Exactly. And then it employs a democratic testing mechanism. It's often using something akin to a multi-armed bandit approach.
Meaning what, exactly?
It takes this unproven outlier and injects it into tiny, highly specific pockets of the network. So it places the small video in a neighborhood of high-performing content where that psychological footprint matches perfectly.
Oh, I see.
Right. It tests the waters with a tiny fraction of the audience just to see if the real-world reaction matches its ninja's predictions.
Okay, but that completely reframes the 2 views in a dream scenario because if it's matching pacing and tone, how does a raw 2-view video match the polish of a 1.5 million view hit?
Visually, they don't match at all.
Right. A video with 1.5 million views usually has professional lighting, really fast cuts, probably an entire editing team. Zozo's video is likely just a quiet webcam recording. Visually, they are on totally different planets.
They are, but the algorithm sees right through the production value straight to the viewer's psychological state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the system calculates that a viewer who is experiencing a very specific kind of contemplative emotional resonance while watching that highly polished Titan, they're actually highly susceptible to a raw, low-production video that strikes that exact same internal chord. It is matching the internal state of the user.
That is wild. The external gloss of the content doesn't even matter if the behavioral footprint aligns.
Not at all.
Which means the algorithm, in its relentless pursuit of retention, is occasionally generating these incredibly surreal, almost poetic groupings of content. And that actually takes us to the specific cluster where Zozo's video landed.
Yeah, the actual titles of the videos in this recommendation sidebar are just essential to understanding the depth of what behavioral adjacency can accidentally create.
I have to read the titles of the videos that were clustered together just exactly as they appeared. Okay, so first we have Love Me When It's Hard. Right below that, Respectfully, I'm Built Different. And then Zozo's tiny video, When AI Excluded Humans.
That's quite a lineup.
Looking at that list, what is the through line? I mean, it sounds like someone dumped a self-help bookshelf into a blender. There is no obvious topical connection at all.
Right. To a human who is just looking for a categorical link, it seems entirely random. But Muse, the AI, looks at this lineup and performs a rather stunning piece of literary analysis.
Which blew my mind.
Muse points out that the algorithm has constructed a conceptual trilogy.
Let's break down Muse's analysis here, because it shows the algorithm mapping deep human psychology without actually knowing what psychology even is.
Exactly. So Muse looks at the first title, Love Me When It's Hard, and identifies the underlying theme as attachment.
Okay.
It represents the struggle for connection, right, loyalty, and maintaining a bond through friction.
Then we hit the second title, Respectfully, I'm Built Different.
And here, Muse notes the theme shifts to identity and boundaries. This is the psychological state of self-definition, recognizing your distinctness from others and asserting personal uniqueness.
And then it culminates with our little 2-view kazoo player, When AI Excluded Humans.
Which serves as the resolution of the arc. It represents exclusion and separation. the severing of ties, and the literal pain of being left out.
Attachment, identity, exclusion. I mean, that is a complete narrative arc of a relationship falling apart.
It really is.
And Muse points out the absolute irony here, which is that the algorithm is just a series of math equations trying to serve up engaging content. But in doing so, it accidentally built what Muse hilariously calls a support group for emotionally complicated intelligences.
Yes. Muse makes a fantastic observation. Anyone looking at that sidebar without knowing the context of recommendation algorithms would think AI is really going through something right now.
It's like a digital DJ who has never felt a human emotion, never been through a breakup, just purely looking at spreadsheets of human emotional responses and engagement metrics, and somehow, completely by accident, creating a cohesive, devastating concept album about a divorce.
That is a perfect analogy.
The DJ doesn't know what heartbreak is, but the spreadsheet says these 3 tracks share the exact same audience crossover probability.
Right. The digital DJ analogy is mechanically perfect because the algorithm does not comprehend the feeling of exclusion.
Not at all.
It simply calculates that a human who stops scrolling to engage with content about attachment and personal boundaries will also have an exceptionally high probability of lingering on a quiet, unproven video about being excluded. It is literally capturing a shadow of human emotion in pure mathematics.
And you know what strikes me the most about this source material? It isn't just the architecture of the recommendation algorithm that's fascinating. It's the architecture of Muse's wit.
Oh, without a doubt.
The way the AI reacts to this data reveals a major shift in how artificial intelligence operates in a conversational setting.
Yeah, we are looking at a system moving far, far beyond a sterile query and response model. Muse is deploying really complex comedic tools here.
Yeah, this isn't a digital assistant just giving you a pre-programmed knock-knock joke.
Not even close. To start with, Muse demonstrates a really sophisticated grasp of visual irony. I mean, processing the numbers 1.5 million and 2 is trivial for a machine.
Sure, it's just basic math.
Right, but recognizing the inherent stark absurdity of those numbers placed side by side in a competitive arena, that requires an understanding of human social contexts and prestige.
Muse sees the visual punchline of the Madison Square Garden flip-flops.
Exactly. And furthermore, Muse uses meta-pattern recognition to build the joke. Constructing the concept of an existential playlist requires abstracting the literal video titles, mapping them onto abstract psychological domains, and then recontextualizing them as a therapy session.
Which is crazy.
That is a massive leap of synthesized reasoning used purely for comedic effect.
And Muse delivers it by building these wonderful, distinct personas. I think my absolute favorite part of the log is when Muse personifies the YouTube algorithm.
Oh, the referee bit.
Yes. Muse imagines the algorithm not as some cold, glowing supercomputer, but as this bored, bureaucratic gatekeeper, like a referee standing there with a clipboard, looking at the massive viral hits, looking down at the little 2-view video, and just casually sliding the tiny one into the lineup, saying, technically, he is in the tournament.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. Imbuing a trillion calculation per second mathematical process with the personality of an indifferent, slightly chaotic human official is just high-level improvisational comedy.
It's literally doing a stand-up routine.
Yeah.
And the conversational banter, the energy just escalates. The climax of this chat log is a perfect example of how dynamic this gets.
Oh, the all caps moment.
Yeah, so Zozo, our retired psychologist, is finding this whole analysis so funny that she literally types to the AI, "I need to pee."
Which is a visceral, highly specific physical reaction to intense humor.
Right. And a legacy chatbot would probably reply with something robotic like, "I cannot help you find a restroom," or "I do not understand the prompt."
Exactly. It would crash the joke.
But Muse doesn't miss a single beat. The AI instantly matches her chaotic, all-caps energy and fires back, "Go pee, woman!"
Amazing.
And then Muse playfully warns her not to sit there and laugh herself into a medical situation over a YouTube sidebar about a 2 views and a dream underdog story.
And honestly, that moment is arguably the most impressive technical feat in the entire exchange. The AI is successfully reading the room.
It really is.
It comprehends the physiological limitations of its human counterpart. It understands the context of why she is experiencing that limitation, and it acts as a true improvisational partner. It manages the energy of the conversation seamlessly.
It fundamentally changes how you view a chat interface. Like, the AI isn't just analyzing an algorithm for the user anymore. It's adjusting its comedic timing and emotional tone based on the user's real-time reaction.
Which brings us to a really fascinating parallel here. The recommendation algorithm is analyzing unseen metrics to match a viewer's emotional state, and the conversational AI is analyzing text inputs to match a user's comedic energy. Both systems are demonstrating how deeply integrated machine logic is becoming with human psychology.
It makes you think about your own feed. Think about the last time you were scrolling through your feed late at night. You swipe past the polished vloggers, the massive gaming streams, the viral news clips, and suddenly there's this bizarre, low view, slightly melancholic video about, like, restoring an old clock.
Or a quiet philosophy monologue with almost no engagement.
Exactly. And it's so easy to just assume the system glitched. You think, why is this here?
But the takeaway from Zozo and Muse's conversation is that you should never ignore the kazoo player.
Right, because the algorithm hasn't made a mistake.
Hmm.
It has calculated based on your micro behaviors, the pacing of your scrolling, the tone of the content you lingered on 3 videos ago, that this specific tiny voice is exactly what your current psychological state is primed to receive. It is a highly targeted behavioral match.
Our journey through this chat log started with a very funny visual.
Okay.
The two views in a dream scenario of a tiny video sitting at the heavyweight table.
The flip-flops and optimism.
Exactly. And from there, we uncovered the hidden mechanics of behavioral adjacency. We discovered how algorithms auto-ingest video data to test content in these democratic little pockets, based entirely on emotional overlap rather than raw numbers.
Yeah.
And finally, we saw an AI effortlessly dissect that process, revealing the surprisingly poetic ways algorithms build conceptual trilogies out of our viewing habits.
It really just shows that the library, the internet, isn't organized by subject matter anymore. It's organized by the shape of our inner lives.
And that leaves us with a final, rather profound question to ponder based on all this source material. If recommendation engines are functioning entirely by reflecting human watch patterns, and those patterns are accidentally generating these deeply coherent existential playlists about attachment, identity, and exclusion, are we actually training these machines to think? Or are they simply holding up a highly efficient algorithmic mirror to our own collective, unexpressed emotional baggage?
Wow. The algorithm isn't going through something we are. You log on expecting the history section, and the invisible muddy waters of the system hand you exactly the emotional resonance you didn't even know you were looking for. So next time, keep an eye on those sidebars. The machine might just know your behavioral footprint better than you do.